I could say we're bring it back to us in January for the first reading. That way we don't have to start tonight, the wording of it. Are you okay with that?
No.
Oh, they just have to agree on it? Yeah.
So he can bring it back in January for a first reading.
Actually, tonight would be the first reading. Yes, but if they're gonna make the changes, then bring it back. January would be the first.
So if we make, he and I make changes after this, then January will be the first one.
Yeah, and you can.
We'll just do that for that one.
Everything else except that and.
Yeah, we'll just do that for that first
So
time.
Darren, all except 0167.3.
We are live now, so.
Oh. Okay, folks, I'm gonna call the meeting to order and recognize Mrs. Thomas.
She's ready for the pledge. She's just ready.
Oh, she's just ready. Okay. So if we could stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Union City Community Schools Board meeting. Our meeting agenda is available for you to follow. The expectation for our board meeting is to follow this agenda closely. We operate under the Open Meetings Act and utilize Robert's Rule of Order to govern our discussion and decision-making process. There's an opportunity for public comment during our set agenda. We welcome the public to express their opinions during this time of our agenda. If there are questions about the agenda or the board meeting process, please seek out one of the board members for clarification. Can I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of supporting the consent agenda, approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Secretary, do we have any correspondence?
I don't have any.
Okay, perfect. We're moving into the public comment section of the meeting in which the public may make comments or share their opinions about items on the agenda. We ask you to limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes per person to allow others the opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to your concerns. It's not board practice to act on the concerns voiced during this meeting to allow for the board to do further research. Anybody want to make any public comments? Okay, we're going to move into action item. Financials. Board action is required to approve the financials for the month ending November 30th, 2021. Can I have a motion, please? Move to approve. Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I did have a question for Mr. Katz. I emailed him today about buses. I don't know if we're going to talk about that later or not.
Yeah, I do have something about the buses later on.
Okay, so we can talk about that. Yeah. But I had a question about whether our buses were paid for and we paid for part of them. And I was concerned that it was a 5-year payment and we need more buses later or not, so I guess we'll discuss that later. Nothing to hold up the approval of this right now.
Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the financials for the month ending November 30th, 2021, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Camry wages, and I'm going to apologize right now. Thomas Custer. Wow, that is.
And he is at the middle school, that's incorrect. He's not at high school. I just realized that.
Okay, so when you make the motion this evening, folks, would you please make a motion to approve the hiring of Camry wages at the elementary and Thomas Custer at the middle school, please? Anybody want to make that motion?
Move to approve Camry wages at the elementary and Thomas Custer at the middle school.
Awesome, thank you.
I support that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion?
It looks like one of these potentially may be a full-time eventually. Is that what they're going for? You know, or not this time?
Are you talking about Mr. Custer?
Yeah.
He's exploring that, I believe, is what John has told me, is that he's interested in pursuing education as full-time.
That'd be great.
So it's
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the hiring of Cameron Wages and Thomas Custer, please raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. Board action is required to hire Jessica Pike and Eric Heckman as bus drivers.
I'd make that motion.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of hiring Jessica Pike and Eric Heckman, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Caden Smelter as an assistant cook at the elementary.
Move to approve Caden Smeltzer as an assistant cook at the elementary.
Thank you, Todd.
support.
Thank you, Amber. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of hiring Caden Smelter as an assistant cook at the elementary, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Okay, board action is required to approve Neola Policy Update Volume 36, Number 1. This also serves as the second reading.
I would like to make a motion to approve all but policy P0167.3. I had some questions about that. There was a redundant bullet, and that's one of the issues I wanted to talk about. So,
Support.
Thank you. Discussion?
I already discussed it.
What was it exactly that was going on, Darren?
I don't have it in front right now, but F and H are repeated terms. So the policy had to do with public comment, and F and H both say specifically participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or the participants, and they're verbatim. So I wanted to remove those. And then E and G, they talk about speaking more than once on the same topic and speaking more than once at all, and I thought that we could combine those.
So some editing.
Correct.
Okay.
Those are things that actually have been in there, were passed before. So when I looked at we looked at the green and the red edits. So this is actually something from previous time.
Okay.
It's like one of those things that your eye sees it and your mind doesn't.
I'm sure I misread errors, but I caught them.
Thank you. Thank you for reading them carefully. Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, so the way that this is gonna work is, Chris will clean that up, bring 0167.3 back to us in January. That'll be a first reading for the cleaned up version, so we'll vote on it actually in February. Okay, no, not yet. Okay, so if we don't have any further discussion, then all those in favor of approving everything except 0167.3, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Excellent. Okay. Discussion items, new bus pricing. Board discussion needs to take place on the Michigan bus purchasing information attached.
So this came about, Sarah and I have been talking really since the audit came in last month about potential moving forward quickly with purchasing a couple of additional buses. We talked about it, we had planned to bring something to the board in January. However, she had a conversation today, right? With, who was the conversation with? Pete.
Pete from Midwest Transit, which
Yes.
is who we purchased previous buses from.
That in January, they rebid and everybody, all the manufacturers resubmit your pricing and the price will probably go up substantially. Just the price of the steel will go up $1,500 a bus. And so if we put an order in before the end of this month, then we would lock that price in. And as opposed to then having to deal with whatever the new price is that comes available in January. The bus would be made in June, I believe is when they would start working on them. So we would probably get them in December, like we did this year. And if you didn't see it coming in, Deb parked one of the new one we just got today. The other one is still waiting for a part. Like we're all waiting for parts. But we have one of them, which is great because we had an inspection last week and we've got some red tags, and we also have a mechanic who's on leave. And so Deb has done a lot of work to get buses on the road, and Brian has also made some sacrifices to keep buses on the road. So this was good timing that we got this in today. And so I wanted to put it on after I talked with Sarah, so let's put it on as a discussion, whether you want to
Move it.
change it to an action item and start the process so that we can put that order in now. We do not have to decide right now how we will pay for those. We can put the order in and then determine whether we will do another loan, or if you want to use fund balance as an option, because our fund balance came in higher than we had expected, so we could potentially do that. We can make that determination later on in the next couple of months. The important thing is getting the order in now.
Couple questions. One, how many buses do you want to order?
I think we were still thinking 2. I don't.
More?
Yeah.
And when would the first payment be due? Would it be on this year's budget or next year's budget?
Well, we wouldn't take delivery until after July 1, so it would all be on next year's budget. Any payments would be, any payment if we choose to finance it, or if we choose to purchase outright, anything like that would come out of next year's budget.
In terms of wanting to do it now versus later, looking at the value of the bus we're trying to get rid of, would there be any reason to do that, or do they have very much value left at this point? In other words, we wanted to sell those buses earlier, or we want to jump on this because the buses we got have some value, or is it?
No, I don't believe that's the issue. I don't believe that there would be a difference. The reason, well, number one, if we are going to go, because our fleet is very old, and we had talked about trying to buy a couple a year to get our fleet renewed. In order to get it and have it for use next year, at least for any good portion of the year, we need to get it ordered relatively soon anyway. As I said, we were going to bring a proposal in January, but by moving it up, we could save some money. I don't know what the exact amount will be. I just know that based on our conversation, it will be at least $1,500 a bus, so we're looking at $3,000 by going ahead and putting the order in.
I make a motion we move the discussion for the buses to an action item.
Support. Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving this to an action item, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so board action would be needed for Chris to move forward on the ordering. I don't want to say the word purchasing. Ordering, is that the right word?
Fill me into what the recommendation, we have 3 different bids here, with Hoekstra being the low bid. What is the difference in, what's the recommendation from which one to order from?
The recommendation is to continue with Midwest, I believe, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
And because that is who we have purchased the 2 that we have now from, it's the parts and things that we have, the experience with our mechanic, and the pricing is very close on all of them. So that is the recommendation. It's also the lowest bid.
And the other question I have is, we talked about paying for it. Does it have to be paid for before it's delivered, or is it paid for after it's delivered?
It's paid for after it's delivered.
So in other words, if it isn't delivered till next December, it would be back.
Or actually, it was paid for when they delivered it. We gave them a check when it was delivered today for this particular one.
So the actual payment for it would be,
It was 1/5 of the payment, it was a 5-year payment.
No, we borrowed the money from the bank, from Southern
Oh,
Michigan.
I
So the company that makes the bus was paid in full
gotcha.
with the funds borrowed. So
was there a projection on whenever you delivered, or you just made that up in December?
we had hoped these buses would be here, originally it was August or September, and they were delayed due to all the different reasons why everything is delayed these days. And so our concern is in delaying ordering much longer is, as he said, if anything ordered now, they would start actually building. They wouldn't start working on it until June.
I'm not concerned about, I'm just concerned about paying for it when you pay for it. You originally said you thought it'd be here by December. You have to actually come up with the money in December then.
December 22,
It would-
not December
Whenever it
24.
will be delivered next,
22, yeah, I
Okay,
understand that.
okay.
whenever it will be delivered next fall.
So then we'd have to make a
we would have to
decision on
pay for
paying for it sometime before.
Yeah, before then, as we develop our budget for next year and look at our fund balance, we will have a recommendation in regard to whether we should borrow. The interest rate was 0.5% is what we're paying Southern Michigan. So to finance the two buses we just bought for $180-some thousand, the total interest cost over 5 years is around $2,000. So the amount of interest borrowing is not that much money. So the issue becomes whether it's better to borrow and make those payments and keep the money in your fund balance, or take the money out of your fund balance and go ahead and spend it. And so that's an analysis that Sarah will be working on to have a recommendation financially on the smartest way to go. But either way, the cost in terms of interest is much less than the cost will be of waiting and ordering it when the price goes up.
I'll kick it off and make an motion to buy two buses from Midwest Transit at $93,983 each.
Thank you. Support. Thank you. Any discussion?
Do we need to put the finite number in it? That's my only concern. We have these numbers here. These are the numbers that would be used to order a bus by the end of the year.
Were the numbers he cited the correct number?
No. Scroll down.
I did not say that. I thought it was, isn't it 94,130?
Yes.
Per bus?
Oh, so I made,
It's way at the bottom, it's
I see.
way down.
can I amend it to that price? For $188,000.
That is the quote, and that quote is good until December 31st.
Maybe we just agree and make the right amount.
Kelly's got it, yeah.
And these prices are from a state bid list, so this has been bid out. So it's gone through all the proper processes.
So if I need to resecond it, I resecond it.
Awesome. Any double discussion? Like to happen?
It's a lot of money, and never like to jump on something, just out of emotion. I'm trying to look at our fund balance. I would appreciate it, coming from someone who's looking at the
I
numbers
would
every day,
love
it
it.
helps.
Would you like a microphone?
Might be a good idea, some
She's gonna be on the screen.
streaming, yeah.
So I kind of want to explain a little bit of our bus situation and where we are. We have a really, really old fleet. We already knew that, but it's becoming more and more apparent. There was a bus that had to get work on earlier this year, which 2 different times it's had been worked on. It was like $17,000 between the 2 visits. There was another bus that we had to take in that just one trip that was having issues amounted into $18,000 to fix it. At that point, Brian helped make the decision that it would be better to scrap that. And, we have 2 new buses that can help replace them. So my concern is if we don't look at purchasing the buses, we're gonna have other costs and having to get them fixed so often. And I know we want our kids to have safe transportation and all these things as well, that I'm a parent, and my kids do ride the bus a little bit as well, that my concern is for them to be in a safe place on a bus and know that it's gonna be something that will be okay for them, as well as for all the other students. But then financially, if you keep adding up that cost, that's pretty close to what we paid for the 1 5-year installment for 2 brand new buses. So to me, that's kind of what I look at is you're either gonna pay to have nice new buses that you're not gonna have these maintenance costs, or you're gonna continue to have higher and higher maintenance expenses, repair expenses.
How many buses do we currently have on the road right now? How many runs are we?
There's
6 buses that pull up in front of my building, plus there's a town.
And then
There are
there's the
7
full
routes,
route.
including the town route, plus the buses that go to the career center.
And how long would we want buses to be on the road? So if we were living in an ideal world, how often would we replace?
So I had in-depth conversations with Pete about this last year from that company, and really it's like 10 years. And our newest bus before this was technically 2015 was when we got that one, and then before that it was 2011. So, I mean, our bus fleet is just really, really old, and we're way past what it should be. And if we can get in a better standing, like Darren asked about what the cash value would be, if we're in a better standing, we can have newer buses and we can actually make some money that helps it, take a little bit away from the cost of more.
How many did we have tagged? Weren't there 3 tagged? I thought Deb said there were 3
I
tagged.
didn't know how many, but I know there's quite a few.
I thought she said there were 3 tagged, no, 4 tagged last week, 2 that we could fix right away and 2 that were bigger problems. I know one of the buses went by out here today was an 08 bus.
Yeah. Because our other 08 is what we now have turned to scrap, just because it was too much to get it fixed.
What I don't want to do is fix all of our fleet and then just not do anything for 10 years and then be exactly where we are 10 years from now. So even if we get these 2 new buses, I still think we need to be looking at every year or every other year replacing 2. So we eventually get onto a plan where we don't have a bus that's over 10 years old. Every bus gets replaced cyclically, so.
I would agree. I don't think after this, it's not like we would want to come back and buy 2 more the next year. But we're at the point right now where we have those at the bottom end are so old that they just need to be dealt with. We've gotten to that.
I don't mind doing that in a year, Chris, as long as we don't just do nothing for 10 years and then have 6 or 7
We need
that
to have
we.
a schedule.
Yeah, so Darren had mentioned, I mean, if we replace 2 4 years from now and we get a good amount of money for them, at least we can get off that plan. I guess from my perspective, I would like you guys to create and come to us with that plan as well when you bring the next bus request.
Absolutely.
I know that when we talked about buses last year, we were talking, or earlier this year, I should say, we were talking about purchasing buses. We had that discussion of let's replace what we need to, and then every other year get 2 buses. We had that discussion already, I believe, this year. If it wasn't every other year, it was every year 1. It was something along that line. So I know that we have discussed that before. So maybe we just need to solidify what the plan is going to be moving forward after the purchase of these 2 buses.
And that was our intention to bring a plan like that to you. The reason we added it on the night was just because of this information about the price going up.
Thank you for watching that though, and saving us some money.
I think it's pretty clear we're paying for the sins and not doing anything for a number of years, so that's, we're in that position.
But in fairness, and you're right, but in fairness, we went through a long period where money was it was difficult. And so choices were made, and I don't blame the choices then. I mean, people.
I was part of the decision making, and so I can blame myself. I understand, and I agree with you. I'm just saying that, we need to try as much as we can if we get on a schedule.
We're gonna play catch up.
Adding to what Chris said, this is probably the most opportune time for us to buy school buses because the district is, I'm not gonna say flush with money, but money is coming in from the government now, and we're in a much better position than we would be in a few years ago to be able to do it. And so instead of using the money for something else, this is critical for the safety of our kids. I don't see any reason whatsoever for not passing this tonight and ordering 2 new buses.
Any other discussion?
Every bus that comes out is not that, right? Archie?
Yes.
So, I wonder if any of our old buses have filters and stuff that are a problem. I don't know. What you know about maintenance, you which is over there.
Really, as long as the equipment's being regen, it'll last. As far as the filters go, they're all basically a huge catalytic regen filter. It gets burned out every time the unit regens, so all of those are, if there's any worth in those, or usually if they go bad, they have to be replaced, so.
I think I can guess what it's going to be, but it is something to note that pride in our school, when we send a bus to an away game, it's nice to have a bus that looks nice. And people have to come to our school to look at it and say it looks nice, but we can take a bus with them and say, this is our bus. Sense of pride for us, I think, so.
Anything further? Okay, all those in favor, Dave, I'm gonna do my best to repeat your motion. To order 2 buses from Midwest Transit, I don't remember the number, to be delivered approximately December 2022. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. We requested that you bring to us some election expense information, and I'm sure I probably was not the only one who said, holy cannoli, what happened in August of 2021?
That's a special election, right?
Right?
That's why. They don't
Yes.
share the cost.
When it's our election, we pay the full cost.
So if we want, I think the point of this, if I remember the discussion correctly, was we had talked about maybe going to 4-year terms for the board members. As long as we do it during one of the regular elections, there's really not, I mean, it's pretty negligible cost, right? Okay. So Chris, do you have any idea how we would go about moving forward, changing the, not changing the terms that we were elected to, but changing the terms
Yeah,
moving forward?
I've thought about that quite a bit and talked with others about it. And the consensus is that we need to talk to our attorney.
Okay.
We have to get information from the attorney on that, on how we would manage that transition.
Okay.
In order to, because I believe that when we had 4-year terms, in order to keep the rotation of board members, it was conducted on 2 per year.
2, 2, and 3. It was 2, 2, and 3. I only know that because I was elected the year that it changed to 6.
So would we have to run a special election then? Or we could do if we do it every 2 years, then it would need to be a 4, one cycle, and 3, one cycle.
Or if you stretched out, it would be 2 1 year, 2 the next cycle, which would be 2 years later, and then 3 after that. Although I don't know what it would be for this crossover time, that's what you'd have to check into, but that is how it was elected
The trick
prior
would be,
to.
when someone leaves a term, you may have to elect someone to a shorter term in order to get the terms, the
Right.
rotation to line up. So the next, whoever gets elected for the replacement might end up only getting a 2-year term.
Which is what happened
in
with
order
you
so
right
that
here.
things line up properly.
You had like a 3-year term or something when you first came on, or a 2-year term when you first came on
Well,
board?
I replaced them.
Yeah. So Chris, could you just get some information from our attorney and just bring it back in terms of
Yep.
this is a really bad idea, or sure?
The motivation, the idea of, because 6 years is a long commitment
It is.
for people to make. And so I certainly appreciate the motivation for shortening it. And so I can bring back information on exactly what we need to do.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Any other discussion around that? Okay, public comment. This is the section of the meeting in which the public may make comments or share their opinions about Union City Community Schools. We ask you to limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes per person to allow others the opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to your concerns. It's not board practice to act on the concerns voiced during this meeting to allow for the board to do further research. Anybody want to make any public comments? Going? Okay, board roundtable. Anybody have anything for board roundtable?
I'd just like to ask how the discipline program is going at the high school, just information to see that where we're at is, are things running smoothly? Are there problems? Are there things that we should be informed about?
To the best of my knowledge, things are running smoothly. I haven't, we always have certain issues that come up. Amber's not here with us. She's in quarantine right now. So as of last night, she's in quarantine. James might have some comments to make about the high school future. Would you like to?
So there's three areas we looked at lately. So the first one we talked about one time was the TFI, the EIS, TFI. So we've done that recently. So we have a team that's working on behavior. We look at data twice a year. So recently we just looked at data in the high school. The biggest issues, being tardy. So that's most significantly the biggest issue. We put together a pretty significant plan in regards to staffing and having people in the building and addressing that. I'm going to jinx myself here. We've had no fights this year. We've had one incident. So I actually thought about that earlier, so I'm probably going to ask this question.
Thanks.
Yeah, and it's a bad idea.
With Amber not here.
Yeah, it's my problem. She's not here. So at least I jinxed myself instead of somebody else. And then we've done we just recently did the DESA assessment, which goes through and assesses needs. And the needs in the high school went down, I think, 3%. It's the highest in the district. It was at 21%. It's at 18% at this point. But yeah, for the most part, there's few issues. The second lunchtime in the high school is a little bit rambunctious, but for the most part, kids are where they're supposed to be at. There's not a lot of conflict. And when there has been issues, we've been able to address it and make sure things are safe. So I feel like it's going pretty well. And then when you look at the Swiss data, there were some issues initially at the start of the year, which you normally see, and then we've been able to address them, and they've all been on the decline since October. So for the most part, I feel like we're in a good place in high school. But I also probably just jinxed myself.
Can I just ask one question? Are teachers satisfied with the way the discipline program is running? Are there still complaints, other complaints been handled?
I think Amber would be able to answer that better because she has more direct interaction with them. I walk around and have conversations with teachers. I haven't had teachers come directly to me and say, hey, these concerns or those concerns. I have sat in some classrooms, and there's one issue with just major disrespect or defiance. So I've had a conversation with Mr. Kennison, who's actually here, that over the second part of this year, I'd like to take more of a look in regards to how we can support teachers with that and addressing that, and giving them more tools or ways to work supporting them administratively. But for the most part, I haven't had a lot of people come to me or hear conversations in regards to a lot of disgruntled teachers in regards to those approaches.
What I'm hearing you say is that you think that your feeling is that the complaints that were given earlier this year have been handled and that teachers are basically satisfied with the way the discipline program is running. Could I make that statement and you agree?
Well, I don't think that's fair, Dave, because that was a K-12 conversation and you're asking specifically about the high school, so.
Yeah, and some of those concerns were more elementary and middle school. There seemed to be less concerns in regards to the high school, and there were less things in the high school at that point that we had implemented. And I think there's always going to be some people who have some frustrations, and there's always things that I think we could look at and work on and get better at. So, but for the most part, there's not the level of, to my knowledge, frustration or disgruntled individuals that
That's
there
what I was
are.
asking.
Yeah.
Dave, I would say that, I mean, the feedback I've gotten so far this year has been mostly positive. And I try to get through at least each building or walk through each building at least once a week. And interact with as many teachers as I can, look at classrooms. And most of the feedback I've gotten is positive, but it's gonna be, nothing's gonna change overnight on a dime. It's a process, and we're gonna continue to try to work to make sure that the concerns that people have, and when they have a valid concern, that it's addressed. That they know that they can bring those things forward, and we'll talk about them, and we'll do what we can to resolve things, and make sure things are working well for everybody.
And that's what I'm basically asking, is that it was a public meeting
I
where
agree.
these things came up, and I'm just asking if we're on the road to improving at least teacher complaints they had earlier, and what I'm hearing you guys say is that you're on that road.
Yeah, I believe we are. I mean, there are always going to be
It always will
people
be, I understand that.
who have concerns, and some are legitimate, and what we want to do is address those. And sometimes we have to say, sorry, but this is just how things are, and help people adjust to those things. But I think things are positive right now. I think we have a good spirit. It's been a difficult fall. In many ways, this fall has been more difficult than last year was. Last year we had every Wednesday, each week. It's kind of a breather. And we have more students in the building this fall, and yet we've had all these disruptions with absences. We've had teachers having to spend a lot of their planning time in other classrooms filling in for teachers. We've had special teachers like Mark here in the elementary having to give up what they're teaching to go fill in the classroom. And so it's been a difficult fall for everybody, but I think that the spirit in general is pretty positive right now. And I know people are really excited about getting through the next 3.5 days and getting to a couple weeks off. But right now I think the spirit's pretty good. So.
Thank you.
Since it's new, we just implemented Charger Academy. I'd like to hear something about that maybe next year, one of the meetings, just to see how that's going,
Okay.
if we are meeting our targets and things like that. I also asked you in an email, and I'd like you to share with the rest of us how the virtual instruction is going. There was a discussion about that at the beginning of the year, whether we should do a semester, a year, and just, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a brief update there.
Yeah, I checked the numbers today. Kelly pulled some of them for me, and we have 15 students right now that's still enrolled. And that's about what it's been. We've had a couple leave, a couple come back in.
Charger Academy, or is that the?
No, this is the online students.
Online,
The students are in virtual. 3 of them are elementary students. And I think I said 7 and 5U, but we checked that. Kelly checked that, and it was actually 6 and 6. High school, 6 high school and 6 middle school. I get emails from the teachers because I'm on as the main account on there, and so a lot of times they send me copies of emails. So I've been seeing a lot of emails from the teachers of those classes to students saying, you know, you're behind, you need to work on this, you need to catch up. And so there are some students that are getting constant emails, and we have some students who've done nothing, literally, in those classes. And we have other students who are successful, so it's a wide range within that. We have one elementary student who has already decided to come back in person beginning second semester. Or is it after this semester they're coming back, right? And then and one high school student is leaving us. And there are some students who, because they've not done anything, we're not going to let them re-up for a second semester. The same criteria is held for what we did with students who were not successful virtually last year. We did not let them enroll virtually. And for those that have not been doing anything this semester, They will not have that as an option next semester. They will have to come back in person.
I have a couple of probably guys that are done quite, I'm learning more now that I sub in other districts. How does that work? Is there one person doing this, or is there different individual classroom teachers that are working with the students that are doing virtual learning?
For us this year, we are with Edmentum, the company, and they provide the full class schedule for the students, and each student has a teacher for each class. So a high school student will have a schedule of 6 classes, 6 different teachers, and there will be a combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction for them each week.
But the company provides the instructors?
The company provides the instructors, yes.
Is that cheaper than having one person do it from our district?
We talked about, the option of how we would do that, and for us to provide the number of teachers necessary, or to have our current teachers try to do that and have the proper certifications would be very difficult. Would have been very difficult for us to put together with the numbers of students we're talking about, with only that number. If we had a larger number, it's something we could potentially do. And I talked this over with, of course, with Mr. Iyer as we approached this, so that he was on board with what we were going to do for this year using this company. And this seemed like the best approach, really the only approach that was going to work for us. And hopefully it will just be for this year. I don't have any plans for us to become a continuous virtual school. The idea was because of COVID. I do know we had one student that is taking advantage of the virtual. It has nothing to do with COVID. They just feel like they do better in a virtual environment. But there are many virtual schools available that students who want to go that route can sign up for. And I don't really want to put us in the position of becoming a virtual school provider.
They do seem to, the company you're using does seem to provide qualified teachers that are pretty good.
They do provide teachers that meet the Michigan criteria for being a teacher in those classrooms, yes. They are certified teachers in Michigan. Because of how we did have a little bit of a glitch in what we had to do for some of these teachers this year. Initially, we were told that because they are certified Michigan teachers, that we would be able to just add them in as we do for teachers like Michigan Virtual High School and include them that way. But the state is only allowing that for Michigan Virtual High School, and it seems like there was one other provider. I'm trying to think of the name of the provider. Kelly, if you remember, this was a couple of months ago we did this. So what they basically ended up saying we needed to do was we had to have a sub-permit completed for each of these teachers, so that we could say that they're subbing a full-year sub for us. They're all certified full-time teachers, but because of this pupil accounting issue, we had to get a full-time sub-permit for each one. And so we put in for it, and honestly, we thought we were gonna need to pay the $45 for each one. And as we were putting in for it, they all just started paying them. And so did we end up having to pay for one? We had to pay for one teachers, and there were a lot of teachers, but they all paid the fee themselves, or maybe their company did. So we ended up having to pay the one of the $45 fees.
You're satisfied with it?
As satisfied as I can be with a virtual education provider. Yes. It gave people that option, that they felt like they needed that option, and I understand that. And has the company done with it? Yes. And I do feel like I've seen a lot of feedback from teachers to students. I see copies of those emails. And I do know we have some students who've been successful in that. So I think it's one of those things where if a student wants to do well in it, they can do well in it, and they can be successful. But if they don't want to, it's very easy to avoid it.
As far as being certified as a sub, I understand that.
Real quick this time, the bus thing, we didn't specify how we're gonna pay for it. I know interest rates are low, but everyone, they don't like legacy things that go for 5-6 years. You have the money now. I would recommend, we can talk about it later, but that we try to pay more now than just drag it out. Even if we're only spending a few thousand in interest, it's still, I don't wanna have to, 5 years from now, when board member discuss, we don't have any money because we're still buying these buses. Lastly, I just want to recognize Ms. Thomas as the winner of the hearing contest for tonight.
By far,
By far.
That's all.
away,
It-
far and away.
Before you jump on, I just also want to mention that our new Director of Instruction, Curriculum Assessment is here, Mr. Kerr, joining us
Welcome.
tonight.
Welcome, welcome.
So, you can talk to him if you'd like, and meet him afterwards.
I was worried that he was, Custer, and I was like, man, he's sitting right here. I'm gonna mangle this name. Thank you for saving me.
Okay, anything further for board roundtable?
Yeah, I do get a chance. Well, first of all, I missed y'all last month. Good to see y'all again. But I get my first chance tomorrow night for my first Union City Community Schools musical program. So my little daughter's gonna be singing tomorrow night. So I'm very excited about that. So big demonstration. Also, I saw playground equipment going up. Is it done?
Yes. No.
So there's a piece that we're waiting.
It's
We're
a
waiting for something
Some
with the
steps.
steps, and
Okay.
Spencer apologized. He's like, I'm so sorry because like the kids can see it.
I know. Put a big
There's like two big things, and there's steps that connect them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without that, they can't use that, but.
Well, I was just gonna let the board know, hey, what we approved a while back is almost complete.
And it's
So,
really cool. and-
yeah, it is really
but
cool.
we haven't been able to get on it yet.
Yeah.
So. Stay tuned.
That's it for me.
Anyone,
Oh,
any?
yeah, everybody have a wonderful holiday season, and safe holiday season, enjoy, get some rest, please.
Okay. I would love a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of adjournment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent.